Daz Cordeau, Kisschasy, welcome to noise11.com. Gee, it's been a long time since we had you guys for an interview, but, you know, it's been a long time since you've had new music too, Daz.
Don't remind me how long.
Well, I will, 16 years.
Wow. Yeah, okay. I asked you not to.
Well, 16 years, but in a couple of weeks, it'll be, new music's out now, Lie to Me. Brand new song
That's right.
coming.
It'd be good. It'd feel good to feel somewhat relevant again, perhaps.
Yeah, and just before a new tour around Australia, a new song, does that mean the new song gets implanted into the set list?
It does, you know, if for nobody else, just for our own enjoyment. But I hope other people do enjoy it as well. But yeah, absolutely. And we are doing a little VIP package before the tour for certain people who want to come along to that, and that's we might bust out another new song for those people.
Ooh!
I told you that. Really, I kind of regret that instantly. That's supposed to be a secret, but
okay.
Yeah.
But you know, now that you've told me there's two new songs, is there more than two songs? Is there a fourth Kisschasy album coming?
Look, I will tell you right now, Paul. There is 9 songs that aren't Lie to Me that are new. And so it's looking like that's going to be a fourth Kisschasy album. We don't know exactly how we're going to roll it out yet. That's still very much up in the air. I mean, the whole idea of new music for us only kind of came in when the songs came, and that was like between October and December last year. It was like all these songs just started pouring out. And so it's all very fresh. You're one of the first people to know all about this, so...
Yeah. Well, we've got the tour coming up. The tour is Hymns for New Believers, which was the second album. Will that be the entire album in order that you will perform during the concerts?
Yes, and then some. So we're definitely going to be playing that album in its entirety, which we've not done before. And I've been practicing actually, and actually having a lot of fun with it. I'm one of those people. Maybe it's a symptom of being the songwriter, but you never kind of go back and dig into your back catalogue. I don't anyway that often. But, you know, enough time has passed, and obviously I'm required to know the songs. So I'm going through them, and, you know, I'm having a good time. I'm actually, like, not as I'm not as disgusted in hearing my own voice back when I was 21 as I thought I would be.
When you play an album from beginning to end all these years later, when you record an album, you know, there's certain sounds and instruments and whatever that goes into the sequencing of the record that doesn't necessarily work in a live environment. So how do you make, you know, each song work one after the other in a live sense?
Well, you know what? I will say that's one thing about this band that hasn't been an issue because we've always been very song-based. The songs always start off with like an acoustic guitar. We don't build up a lot of like backing tracks or anything like that, which is great. And I've seen bands who do that and they can do that really well. I don't think we would do that very well. So we are very much a classic rock and roll band, 2 guitars, bass and drums, and we just make that work. We don't even really use pedals. We're very like no gimmicks, nothing like that band. So in this record in particular, it's a very cohesive record. So this album is actually best case scenario for those of us who don't want to carry around a bunch of different, you know, esoteric effects and stuff like that. It's very much just like 2 amps, a big drum kit, a big bass amp, and that's it. And so it hasn't been too difficult. Although I will say I'm still here in LA. I don't fly there until a week and a half, and then we get into a rehearsal room with the full band. So I might be eating my words. It might be more difficult than I'm saying.
Is there anything off this album that has never been played live before?
I don't think there's anything on this album that's never been played live. I think the last song, Dissolution, is one that we never really played that often. And there's another song called To Death, which is actually one of my favorite songs on the record, but it's really hard to sing. There's a line in the chorus that's so high that I've had to really I'm just going to be chugging pints of throat coat before I get on stage each show, just so I can hit that one note.
The first EP, Dark Side Stay Awake, that was 21 years ago now. That is the only Kisschasy music legally allowed to buy a beer in America.
I know. I go to a strip club. I was singing that the other day. You're right, yeah.
Yeah. Dark Side, that got played on the 2023 tour, I think. Is that the only one you tend to go back to?
That Well, no, we've played Reminder, which is off the second EP, Carasposa. But those two are the two from those EPs that we tend to play the most, just because those are the ones that they got a bit of, play on radio at the time. We thought we don't want to go too kind of obscure, and so we thought those ones, even though those EPs are obscure by their very nature, we thought we'll do the quote unquote hits from those EPs, even though they weren't really hits.
There's been three albums. United Paper People, the first album. You were brand new to the studio. Well, you'd done the EPs, but this was the first album that you'd gone in to record. I guess still finding your way. But songs from that record, like Doo-Doos and Black Dress, still recently have been used as closing songs for the band. So they're still the focal point of what the audience knows you for.
Yeah, I mean, but that was the thing with our band in general. It was always kind of like we just wanted to. We really were like the songs are the thing. We want the songs to outlive us. And so one of the reasons why we broke up really in 2015 was because I actually wrote a fourth album that we didn't think was good enough to kind of put the Kisschasy name to. So we were like, rather than kind of just meander along and feel uninspired and just like dilute this little legacy that we've got, let's just walk away. And it wasn't until 22 when we came back together for the Good Things Festival that we felt reinvigorated and we're like, wow, we've got a lot more to offer as a band. And then fast forward to late last year, and then finally the right songs came, the songs that did feel like they were worth, our name. And so that's why I feel like we could come back and still play these big shows, is because we made sure that our songs had kind of that's what our intention was, for them to have like this lasting kind of timelessness, if you will.
Yeah, and there's some big news for us. So in the year 2045, when you look back to the 2015 album that you thought wasn't good enough then, and you're sitting back and going, oh, that wasn't too bad, we'll have a 2045 release of it.
That's right. That'll be. I mean, I actually don't even know where those files are. They were on a hard drive that died that I had, but I think Joel might have the MP3s. They're probably not very good quality, but by 2045, I'm sure there'll be some kind of AI technology that can make them sound wonderful.
Oh, look, AIU will still be touring. You won't.
That's
You would have
right.
retired, but AIU will still be going around.
That's right. I'll let me take care of that.
Kisschasy avatars.
That's right. That sounds great, actually.
Yeah, yeah. United Paper People, it was truly an indie album, and on Below Par Records, which a record label, indie in the true sense of the word, started out with three mates. I think The Living End even recorded their first stuff with Below Par. It must have been like freedom in the studio going in and recording for Below Par back then.
Absolutely. It did feel like that because they got us. I remember before we signed to Blow Par, we did this showcase in Sydney that our manager at the time had sorted out. He had invited a bunch of like major label people, and then Joel, our bass player, had invited Jai, who still to this day is one of my best mates. He ran Below Par with two other guys, Matt and Mark. And they came along as kind of the people that we knew would understand us. And lo and behold, we played that show. Everybody else left because it wasn't very good, but they heard something. And so they signed us. And so that was what was great, going into the studio under their guidance. They were kind of like, they knew what they understood us, and we felt understood. So that did mean that we could go in and make an album that we all felt like we wanted to make.
Were you more confident with Hymns for Non-Believers? When you went in to record that one, you had a bit of experience under your belt by then.
Absolutely. And we also had, that confidence that came along with actually the first record actually doing well, which, it did better than anybody expected. So there's a certain confidence that comes along with that. And I think with Hymns, we also I had enough life experience that it was really cohesive, not only musically, but thematically. It felt like it was kind of like it really, everything lined up very well for that album. And if you listen to the lyrics on that album, there's like a lot of words that get repeated throughout the songs. There's a lot of religious imagery, even the artwork itself. So I felt like we really hit our stride with that one, as far as just putting together a great kind of package.
And Perfect Ways to Meet Strangers off that album has been an opening song in the set list. Do you feel that announces the band when you come on and you start that one up and the audience just gets straight into it?
Absolutely, and as you know, I mean, that song is all about that feeling, about that those nerves you get before you go on stage, and then you get up there and you see those eyes in the crowd, and it's just like it is the perfect way to meet your new friends and your audience, and so that it just feels so apropos every time. It's hard to go against that song as the first song, and we do change our set lists up often, but also 9 times out of 10, we will come back to that as the first song because it just works so well.
Hymns for Non-Believers was a number 5 album in Australia, and that was back in the days when ARIA wasn't a joke yet. It actually meant something, and
Yeah.
it was pre-streaming. People actually had to go out and physically buy that record
Hmm.
on CD at the time, but they actually owned it, like collection in the back here.
That's
Um,
right.
it was something that with their hard-earned cash, they went out, they bought a Kisschasy record and came home. It went gold. It went top 5. It must have been great times for you.
It was really kind of pinch me moment, and it's one of my life's great achievements, and it's hard to gauge now, we're about to put out new music for the first time, as you reminded me, in 16 years. And so I don't know what to expect with new music. I just hope, the fans that we have and maybe some new people hear it and dig it. But, we obviously have to change those expectations. The way people devour music now is completely different. But I am grateful that we were around at a time when people did go out and buy CDs. 'Cause that's the way I grew up, experiencing music. I'd go up and get the train from Frankston and go all the way into to Missing Link Records and get my CDs that way. And so there is an emotional attachment to doing it that way, and I feel like that's maybe another reason why we can come back and do this, is because when people experienced our music and bought our music, they really went out of the way to do it, and there's a certain emotional attachment when you do that. And so perhaps I can't speak for modern artists, but I definitely think that's a big factor for the continuing popularity of our band.
The Hymns album producer Chris Sheldon, who had worked with the Foo Fighters, the work that he did immediately before you was garbage. That's quite an impressive name for somebody who's an indie band on an indie label to recruit.
Yeah, and he was great. He was so like charming and kind of crazy and hilarious. And I remember we caught a plane from Sydney, where we were doing the drums and bass at the Grove Studios, to Byron Bay, where we did the rest of the album. And it was this tiny plane, and it was that kind of almost famous moment when it felt like it was going to go down. And I was freaking out, and he was just sitting at the back of the plane, like this six-seater plane or something, laughing maniacally the whole time. I was like, this is the last vision I'm going to see and hear, is going to be this crazy producer going, just laughing his head off. But thankfully we landed and finished the album.
Mm. Was that the album with Ione Sky?
Ione Sky? No, that was United Paper People, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Did she ever hear her song?
I don't know, but you know what's funny is that I do have a lot of friends who are friends with her and Ben Lee, who is her husband. And I do find myself tempted to ask, and I want her to know that it's no hard feelings. We didn't, because it's a song that's kind of about me not wanting to be around at this place that I was at, and it was couldn't think of a name for the song, and Jai from Below Par suggested, well, why don't you just call it like some famous actor's name? And we always liked the name of her name, and we loved the movie Say Anything. And so we thought, and then she's also Donovan's daughter, so there's a bit of a musical connection there as well.
Ione Sky, yes, Donovan's daughter. And I've talked to Ben many times over the years. I'm always amused that he is Donovan Leach's son-in-law.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's bizarre, strange
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Third album, Seizure, Rod Schnafe, a very different producer. He'd worked with people like Elliott Smith and Booker T. It seems like a strange choice after the first 2 records, but, he achieved some goals with the Seizure record.
Yeah, he sonically he'd done some really cool stuff. He felt very maybe the most eclectic producer we were going to work with, and it was a bit more of that album was a bit of a step left for us. So it was kind of his name was thrown out from early on, and and he'd done obviously Elliott Smith, which was a huge influence, but he'd also done like the Vines. He'd done a band that Joel loved called Saves the Day, which is a bit more, and I think he'd done a Get Up Kids record as well. So he'd done like a mix of records, that kind of represented where we'd been, but also where we wanted to go, and and so that was a really cool experience because we came out to Los Angeles and stayed out here for 3 months, and it's kind of where I started to really get a feel for the place. This was back when labels had more money than sense, and we spent a good 3 months, kind of just. And I'd never done that before, where we'd had so much time to make an album that we kind of just every song we were like, okay, well this little guitar bit, let's just get a whole different guitar setup and see. And I really started to understand what different guitars and drums and basses bring to the table. Before it was very utilitarian, and then I started to understand the different tones and things like that. But then fast forward to now, and this, it's been the complete opposite. We've met this new album, and we did that in 5 days. And I don't know, there's some kind of law where it says the amount of time you're allotted to something is the amount of time it'll take. And it's amazing that we now made this new batch of songs that we all agree that they sound better than anything we'd done in the past, and we did it in 5 days versus the amount of time we used to take. It's kind of, it's crazy, but I wouldn't change it. Rob was such a great character, and I still see him around LA to this day, and he taught me a lot about just music in general.
And now that we know there's a new album coming, and you've told me there was an album in 2015 that didn't come, so do I refer to the new album as the fifth album?
Oh, maybe that's quite evocative.
You're just going to leave us a blank space, for 2045 when you do bring that.
That's right. It's like what the Traveling Wilburys did. They had volume 1, and then they just had volume 3, which I always thought was hilarious. That's what we can do. We'll have album 3 and album 5.
Yeah, there was the television show City Homicide that used spray-on pants. Did you ever see the episode?
No, but I was told about it actually. Yeah, I don't know much about that show. I'm not sure. I can't imagine our song going with the show like that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe when I get back to Australia, I'll dig it out.
Yeah, Shane Bourne was a serious actor in that. I always only knew him as a comedian on Hey, it's Saturday, yeah. And then suddenly he's this serious police dude.
I'll have to check it out. Have you seen the episode?
I haven't seen the episode, no.
Okay, all right.
So, all right, we've both got something
BBC.
to do. We'll be doing some Googling. I'm sure there's something up there. Yeah. So the original band will be the touring band?
Absolutely. That's one of
Joel,
the things.
Sean, Carl, and yourself?
Yeah. That's one of the things we're most proud of is we've been the same unit since day dot. And not to say we haven't had our ups and downs, but I think that just brings us all closer, So it is good. And there is this thing that, when you have those same people in the same room for so long, it's just this unspoken language. Like when we got back together in 2022 for Good Things, we just realized like, oh my God, like it doesn't matter how much time we've had off. We locked in like a bunch of time to rehearse before we played the festival, and we went through the set in an hour, and we're like, do we even need to do it again? It's crazy. We did, but we certainly, it didn't feel like the amount of time had been lost. We have this unspoken kind of chemistry, and it's really great. And that's one of the reasons why we're like, well, it would kind of be a waste to not see if we can make something new, because we have this thing that a lot of people don't have, and so that's a special thing.
What have you and the other three guys been doing while you haven't been Kisschasy for 16 years?
They're all far more successful than I am. Well, financially, I would say. They've all got businesses. Joel runs a nursery in Balnarring called Tall Trees, which is a family business, and they basically supply mature trees to businesses. So you want to have a huge pine tree in your driveway. They've got the actual trees on their property, and they've got the trucks to move them. And then Sean and Carl both have building businesses. which are both thriving. And Sean does a lot of stuff in music as well. He's got like a music school where he trains young people. And Carl's been playing around with a lot of different people as well, I believe. And I've been playing with a bunch of people here in LA, doing a bunch of co-writing. And LA is a very big hustle culture, so you got to kind of do like 20 things to survive here. So I've been booking events. I've had to learn how to DJ. It is inspiring. I do like being a small fish here, and I do like that kind of, the thing. I think that one of the things that LA has that Melbourne or Australia perhaps lacks is this drive, because there's no safety net, because they don't look after the little guy here like Australia does. There's no safety net, so that's why people here have the American dream. They strive for the top. And so a lot of the people you meet in LA aren't necessarily the most talented people, but they've got the work ethic. And so, they're in writing sessions all the time, and they're just like, they want to make their art lucrative. And I think in Australia, that's perhaps why we have the whole tall poppy syndrome. It's because you can get by pretty well in Australia without having to do too much. There's a really big, nice safety net there, which is great, which is what makes Australia a great country. But I feel like it's probably one of the symptoms of that is our need to cut people down when they get a little bit too headstrong when it comes to certain things. And so one of the things I do like about LA is people here are like, no, you should try and be the best you can be at what you do, and why not? And so I've been, I think I've been trying to bring that into my music a little bit more, but still have that like Australian self-deprecation that comes with my blood.
Yeah. Well, you better start packing, coming on down for the Hymns for the New Believers tour, starting in Perth on the 6th of June and ending in Melbourne, 21st of June. No doubt that'll be full of family and friends.
Absolutely. That's going to be a bucket list item. The forum where we're playing is, we've actually never played there. It's going to be our first time. And I think this tour is perfect for that, because they're all the venues are kind of like these very like, ornate kind of venues that almost reflect the artwork of the album. It's our biggest album. These are our biggest shows, and it's going to be a very bombastic, big experience. We're putting a lot into the lighting show and everything like that. So I think it's really going to be a fun one and a special one for the books.
I saw Tom Jones at the Forum, and
wow,
it was one of the greatest nights I've ever had, because everybody in the audience was old and they all wanted to sit in the seats up the back. So there was no one standing down the front. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that would have been great, because he puts on a great show too, and everyone would have known every song. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Oasis have been there, Pink's been there, and now Kisschasy.
Wow, we're in good company.
Yeah.
That is crazy, actually. That's another pinch myself moment,
Yeah. Paul Weller, Johnny Marr. Nick Mason. Nick Mason from Pink Floyd just played there late last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So you're in good company.
Now.
Yeah. All right. So the Hymns for the New Believers is the tour. The fifth album coming out in 2025, the fourth album coming out in 2045.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us here at Noise 11, Daz.
Thanks so much, Paul. Appreciate it.